Well, if you got pretty good at it, you could milk 6 cows in an hour. Maybe just a little more, but
You sold all the milk.
yes. Well, except we had, for quite a while, before we started selling milk in the cans, we had separators. And you'd separate the cream out of the milk. And the skim milk that you'd separated, we'd feed to the hogs, along with their regular feed. And then on Saturdays, the folks would take the cream and our eggs that we had built up, take them in and sell them. Either sell them, or the cream we'd take to a creamery there at Greeley. But the eggs, sometimes we'd trade them at Evans at a little old grocery store for groceries.
How'd you keep the cream cold during the week?
They had a little ice house, and kept blocks of ice in there, bought it in blocks. Same way with in the houses, they all had wooden ice boxes, put in them blocks of ice.
So how old were you when you left that farm and got your own?
Oh, when I got my own farm, let's see, that was after I'd gotten out of the service, 53, let's see. It was about middle 50s, 54, something like that, 5.
What'd you do in the service? Like, were you Army?
Oh, I was in the Army. I went through Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then I got sent to California out by Oakland, and I spent my time there. I didn't go overseas.
Okay.
Did a lot of go into the service?
Hmm.
Did a lot of your friends from your
Yes,
area?
yes. A lot of them did. My older brother went. Brother, younger, he went in after high school. He joined the Air Force. And he spent, gosh, I don't know, 12, 14 years in there. Mostly in California, and he was overseas 2 or 3 times. And he had 3 kids while he was in there, 3 boys. And then Vietnam come along, and he was so tired of picking up and going here and there, and his time come up, and he took it. 3 days after he got out, they froze him. He'd had to stay in. But he his buddy stayed in, and doggone if they didn't leave him right out Buckley Field to train the younger ones. And John could have probably too. But, he didn't know it at the time. And his buddy went clear through and retired at about 25 years. So he done pretty good.
Were you still in high school when World War II started? No.
No, I was just,
Farming?
yeah, I was just in grade school, really.
Oh, grade school.
Yeah. Yeah, when Pearl Harbor happened, this had happened December 7th, 41. Yeah, I was just in grade school.
What do you remember about, like, the World World War II? What are your memories from then?
On,
On did it affect, how did it affect you and the people around you?
oh, when Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it was just an awful sad time. There was a lot of relatives that was in the service at the time, and you didn't know what happened to them or anything. But and during World War II, you never know for sure where your relatives were, really, because they wouldn't hardly let them even write home sometimes in different areas. And when they did, they really couldn't tell you a whole lot. When, like now, they call each other a couple times a day or week or something, but. And then my wife's, she had a brother on the Yorktown, it went down, but he was one of them that made it. Yeah, he got back, but it was a sad time because you didn't know where they were, or what happened.
The farm community wasn't affected as much as
No.
We were kind of in the middle of the country, but were there blackouts here?
I don't think we had so much blackouts. We had rationing.
Yeah.
On gas was rationed. A lot of things was rationed.
How'd that work?
You just
You
got.
had a coupon book or something, is that what it was?
Yeah. Pearl still got some of ours in the
Yeah.
trunk. Yeah. I don't know if she remembers where they're at though.
How did you meet your wife?
I come home on furlough and my mother and my sister introduced me to her. She was running around with my sister. That's the way that got started. Started writing to each other after I went back, but I was one of them that never was gonna get married. Now I can't remember of ever being single.
So, how long have you been married?
52 and a half years.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. Yeah,
Did your wife grow up on a farm too?
no,
No?
she never lived on a farm till she married me.
Mm.
She was from Milligan, little town over here.
Anything else? Questions?
Did you have kids?
Yes, we had two,
Did they work
a
on
boy and a girl.
Did they grow up working on your farm?
They grew up on the farm, but they got off of it about as soon as they could.
But can you explain sort of the history of water in Weld County and what's happened?
I wished I could have found some papers on that. But on this water history, years ago, it was called first in time, first in right. And what that meant was the people that could utilize the water from the river on their farms and everything, they had first right on that water. And then later on they started building these reservoirs. And so they could fill the reservoirs certain times of the year to each one on their rights, how they come into effect. But if someone down the river needed the water, they could call on it if they had an older right. But it all balanced out for years and years and years. And then later on, it started more building going on. And some of the people was lucky enough to have gravel underneath their farms, deep down. And they drilled wells, water wells. And then the aquifer that they got into, they had the first right to that on them wells. So they was still setting all right. And everything went along good for years. And then somebody got the bright idea that somehow on them wells it's taking water from the river. And it wasn't so, but they said it was, and they got it, laws going on that they had to, couldn't run them wells all the time. But, and you can't convince them to check it out. But this water in different aquifers, water won't run uphill. Never has, never will. But they seem to think that some of them are drawing the water,
On the Platte, yeah.
yeah, from the Platte. And anyway, it's getting to the point where these farmers are just getting tied down to where they can't hardly raise crops anymore. Because you can't raise certain crops without water. Hardly any row crops whatsoever, truck crops, truck garden. About all you can do is stick it into wheat or something and hope for rain, which we don't get enough rains in this is arid country around here. But I don't know.
So what's gonna happen with farming, because a lot of these crops are pretty water intensive, and even though they've invented sprinklers and things which use less water, because a sprinkler uses sometimes a third less water to water the same crop as a row irrigation.
That's right. Maybe even only half as much.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Some crops.
They've learned all that. They've got more technical. They've got these return ponds
Mhm.
they didn't used to have to utilize this water.
Yeah.
And but every time someone wants some water, well, let's go take it from the farmer. Just like he's not even important. Some of them same people, when their stomachs start rubbing their backbone, they're gonna wake up and say, oh, what did we do? We can't raise our crops anymore, our groceries.
Yeah.
Be sending to old Mexico and Japan or somewhere for their groceries. And then look out, it'll be priced worse than gas.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I don't know.
But the point was that from the time that your parents were farming until
Now,
you quit farming, it was a good living.
yes,
It was
it
possible
was.
to do, even with bad weather. You get a hailstorm here or there.
Oh, yeah, had my wheat hailed out more than I harvested it
Right.
for some reason. And we went through some terrible dry years back in the 50s
Yeah.
on them reservoirs. That's when them wells really paid off,
All right.
you know,
Sure.
because I couldn't get a well that they took test holes, but there wasn't no gravel there.
Yeah.
And you've got to have a underground current, and it's usually in wherever you see gravel, you can find it. But there was several years that our reservoirs couldn't get any water because what little was going down the Platte River, the people in Nebraska and lower part of Colorado had the first right to it. And that's where them rights come in. And as long as they called for that water, why, we couldn't fill our lakes.
Right.
So how did you handle those dry years without having a well?
Well, I tell you, if you could, you'd go out and you'd try to get a job somewhere till they'd pass over. I went to Denver and drove truck. And my older brother, he finally come down too. But when it come back there around latter part of 50, it was good again till.
And they
Just-
grew more beets in the 50s than ever.
Yes, they
It
did.
was a huge
Actually,
industry.
they did, Steve.
Yeah.
But now it's sad, putting it all the sugar factories are closed
Oh,
down.
God, yeah.
They haul these beets clear to Fort Morgan and Gering, Nebraska
Right.
from here.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what the trucking bill is?
In the 50s, diesel and gas were 15. What do you remember paying for fuel in the 50s?
14.5 for diesel fuel in 50, no, I take that back. That was clear up in 83.
In 83, you were still
83.
paying 14 cents a gallon.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's ridiculous how much prices have gone up.
And gas was about 18 in 83.
Right. And so agricultural as we knew it was based on trucks and tractors.
Yes.
And it was, the fuel was a small fraction of a relatively small
Oh,
fraction
yeah.
of the price, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Gosh, yes. But I don't know how these folks are cutting their corn this year and
Yeah.
coming out
Right.
on that diesel fuel's $2.80, $2.90,
Right.
up $3 a gallon, some of them said.
You all know the cattle industry, as we pointed out, really was a sort of follow-up of the agriculture, because this wasn't the Wild West kind of
No,
herds of cattle like you might see in movies and TV. It wasn't like that here. There were buffalo here.
and there was,
Beginning.
basically, there was two feedlots, Montfort's and Farr's, for years and years. You know, it wasn't like it was now. And they didn't have, I don't remember how many they fed, but now, my Lord, in the Greeley area, they must, I imagine they have about 100,000 on feed
Probably.
Wow.
of cattle, pretty close.
But why that worked at all was because transportation. When Colorado became a meat exporter, because when you had rail and once you had trucks and the ability to haul, particularly processed meat,
Yes,
when you could haul meat that had been grown here but shipped into the East Coast, I remember well that endless numbers of Montford trucks heading for New York.
oh yes, you bet.
And so then when Weld County grew, it needed more feed.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, really, I mean, Weld County still imports more feed than it grows. Weld County is a net
On,
feed importer.
like on grains,
Yeah.
corns and barley and oats and things like that.
Right.
And, yeah, they still truck in a lot of grains.
What kind of cattle did you have to start with? I mean,
I had dairy cattle, a lot of shorthorns. And, ended up with kind of a mixture of Holstein and
Why was there this big shift from growing crops to like having all these cattle for
well,
feed and stuff?
I think a lot of it was that you had your cash crops to raise more cash crops for the cattle, and the feedlots got bigger, and then there was more of them too. And there used to be good rail lines here to deliver.
can you explain why there were feedlots in the first place? Why everybody just didn't have their own small cattle operation?
Well, the feedlots come into play for these bigger towns. Most all of us, we had our own meat. I haven't eaten a steak since I left, a good steak since I left the farm, because we raised our own beef and everything. Well, then I got false teeth too. You don't chew as good with them.
Did you guys have any horses on your farm? Did you guys have a lot of horses at all?
Anyway,
Horses?
oh yes, I never did. I started out farming with horses, but then as far as ponies, I only kept one around, because I had to have one horse once in a while. I had one old horse that the kids, they could pile 3 or 4 kids on there, on his back. And honest to God, we had that horse for 30 years. Yeah, little blue roan. Your folks had one they called Queenie,
Yeah?
little brown horse. You remember her?
I only remember.
Maybe she was gone.
Yeah, I only remember hearing about that horse.
Yeah, her and that blue roan I had,
Yeah.
they got so you never hardly see one without the other.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But going to town on a horse was a different proposition.
Yes, before I had a pony, Art had a pony, pretty young at age. Him and Ina Mae McAvoy would ride this black and white Shetland to school every morning. But I never had a pony. And for a long time, honest to God, I'd ride an old mare workhorse clear into Evans on Sundays to the Methodist church.
Yeah?
I remember that, and I was only maybe 10 years old.
Yeah. That was a big horse.
Oh, I was a big horse. I'd climb up her leg. I was so tiny. I wasn't very big. And I'd tie her over in the park,
Yeah?
just a little ways from the church. And
Right.
she'd fertilize it and eat her grass at the same time.
How long did that take you to ride to Evans from where you lived?
Boy, I don't remember now, but it seemed like I'd be late once in a while. I don't think I was ever hardly late.
Yeah.
No, I think about always timed it right. And she wasn't overly fat either. That didn't help.
And horses didn't get along too good with cars. There were a lot of horses that were
No,
afraid of cars.
she was one of them. heard or seen a car come, you get off in the gutter,
Yeah,
stand there till they went by.
yeah.
Yeah. I finally got a bicycle.
I was just gonna say, did most kids ride horses to town, or most people ride horses to town, or did they just walk?
Oh, you'd trot them and run them some, but that old workhorse, I never run her much. It usually walked or trotted.
Was that the main mode of transportation in and out of town? Or?
Well, most people had an old car around, or truck. No, there wasn't. There was a few horses that people ride to town too and everything. They had hitch rails along, but. And the schools all had some pretty good horse barns for them in them days.
BB Draw didn't have a thing like, did it?
Yeah, they had
a horse barn there?
They had a horse barn there.
Oh, is that right?
The Humphreys, or the Dupers and Osters, they all had horses.
Yeah.
You were talking earlier with the new water laws that it's sometimes harder for farmers to water their crops. Does that mean that some of the farmers have changed how they're using their lands? Are they shifting from farming to other uses?
Yes, it's changed a whole lot. And the farmers that do irrigate now, they have more modern ways of doing it. Like Steve said, they put in sprinklers and they, it's just a whole altogether different. Actually, they utilize the water a whole lot better now than they used to.
Because of how much you worked as a child, do you think that kids nowadays have it too easy?